Welcome to the 700 Club. Islamic terrorists appear to be changing their tactics. They're launching fewer big attacks. Instead, lone wolves are carrying out smaller ones more frequently. And they're using everything from knives to vehicles to kill their victims.
Despite the spread of terrorism, ISIS is suffering a major military defeat in Iraq. Gary Lane brings us the story.
The most recent terror incident happened Wednesday in Flint, Michigan. A 50-year-old Tunisian man from Canada, Amour Fatoui, attacked a police officer at Bishop Airport. He used a 12-inch survival knife like this one to stab Officer Jeff Neville.
Lieutenant Neville fought him right to the end, right until I was able to handcuff this person.
Fatoui shouted Allahu Akbar, God is greatest, before attacking the airport policeman.
And he made a statement, something to the effect of, you have killed people in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and we are all going to die.
Neville was taken to a Flint hospital where he was listed in stable condition. Fatoui was charged with committing an act of violence at an international airport. Terrorism charges are likely. That attack here in the U.S. came after more lone wolf strikes in France and Belgium earlier this week. In Paris, one of Europe's top summer tourist destinations, a second terrorist attack in 3 months along the Champs-Élysées. 31-year-old Adam Jaziri from the Paris suburb of Argenteuil drove a car packed with explosives into police. And in Brussels, a man was shot by police as he attempted to detonate a suitcase bomb at the central train station. The 36-year-old Moroccan national, a suspected supporter of ISIS, lived in Molenbeek. It's the Brussels neighborhood linked to past terror attacks in Paris and Brussels. In Europe and here in the United States, officials are warning about the growing possibilities of more terrorism. And one criminology expert in Paris says people are becoming numb to all the attacks. Professor Alain Bauer compares the frequent attacks living in London and facing constant danger during the Nazi Blitz in World War II. That's when German planes repeatedly bombed innocent civilians. He said just as back then, the question is not if there will be more attacks, but when and how to endure them, with the idea that at the end the West will win. And he said that now smaller lone wolf attacks are becoming the norm. Bauer said, quote, "We've gone from hyper-terrorism to low-intensity terrorism of proximity, with few victims but with a strong media amplification." As Europeans brace themselves for more possible terrorist attacks during the busy summer tourist season, ISIS is suffering military defeats in Syria and Iraq. When Iraqi troops closed in, ISIS acknowledged defeat in Mosul by blowing up the Grand al-Nuri Mosque. It's the same mosque where ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared the Islamic State Caliphate 3 years ago. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, the destruction of that mosque is certainly symbolic. ISIS blew it up. They were trying to blame coalition forces. They were trying to blame a U.S. airstrike for it. But the news is getting this one right. They are the ones that did it, and it's a signal of their defeat. In other news, Senate Republicans are releasing their plan today to repeal and replace Obamacare. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. The Senate plan would end penalties for people not buying insurance, erase tax increases, and cut back federal funding for Medicaid. President Trump, at a rally in Iowa last night, said Republicans would have to go it alone.
If we went and got the single greatest health care plan in the history of the world, we would not get one Democrat vote because they're obstructionists. They're obstructionists.
The Republican bill comes as health insurer Anthem announces it's pulling out of the Obamacare markets in Wisconsin and Indiana next year. Well, a mother and son recently reunited after nearly 50 years of separation. Their story dates back to the Vietnam War when the baby boy was taken away, but his mom never gave up hope of finding him. Charlene Aaron shows us how years of praying finally paid off.
At 2 years old, Kirk Kellerhals was adopted from an orphanage in Vietnam. After growing up in America raised by Christian parents, the 47-year-old never imagined meeting his biological mother.
I've grown up ever since I was old enough to know that I was adopted with the notion that my parents perished in the Vietnam War.
But that's not what happened.
I know it's been a few long days for me. I can't imagine how long this trip has been for her.
This amazing turnaround began just weeks after Kellerhals received an email from a woman urging him to give her a call.
Hello?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. call?
Yes, I'm returning a call to this number.
I am looking for my son. I've been looking for him for a long time, and I believe you are my son.
Fast forward to June 6, 2017, when CBN News documented the long-awaited moment for Keller Halls and his birth mother, Twee Nati Niblett. Niblett and her husband drove from San Antonio to Virginia Beach for the emotional reunion.
Thank you so much, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing my son to me. Thank you so much. Oh, God, I love you so much. Thank you so much, God. Thank you, Jesus. I know you know where my son is.
Niblett became pregnant at just 17 during the Vietnam War. She says when her father learned of the pregnancy, he became angry because she wasn't married. Plus, the father was an American soldier. She told us what her father did the day her son was born.
Took the baby right after I happened. I knew it was a boy. I know it was a boy.
Niblett also suffered physical abuse for refusing to go along with a hastily arranged marriage. Keller Hall's biological father transferred to another military base and never knew about the pregnancy. The two eventually lost contact. Niblett came to the U.S. in 1971 and never stopped praying that she would one day find her son. After many disappointments, she turned to the internet and Family Tree DNA just 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Keller Halls had hesitated to look, although he had always wanted to know more about his birth family. Finally, he decided to take a chance, and just days after going to the same website, was notified about a possible match.
It said parent-child match. I just kind of shook my head and thought, no, there's a mistake. That's impossible.
That unlikelihood turned out to be the answer to his mother's unwavering prayers.
I just knew that it was my son because I've been praying.
Days after connecting with his mom, Keller Halls also met a brother and sister he never knew existed. Family members are thankful for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
God has always been faithful, and this has all happened in His timing, and we're grateful for that.
I feel blessed.
What are you going to call Grandma?
Grandma.
Keller Halls and Niblett hope their story inspires others.
Continue believing. Sooner or later, God going to open that door.
We have to be patient. We have to be faithful, as Mom put it, and trust in His perfect timing.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Beautiful story. Thanks, Charlene. And there's more good news. A reunion is now being planned for Kirk and his father. Well, employees at a startup hub in Sweden are voluntarily getting microchip implants in their hands. The company, Epicenter, offers to implant its workers and startup members with microchips the size of a grain of rice. The chip functions as a swipe card to open doors and operate printers, and replaces other things like credit cards or keys. The implants use near-field communication technology, the same as in contactless credit cards or mobile payments. Of course, that raises the possibility of hackers stealing the implanted information. But so far, the chips are very popular among Epicenter employees. And some experts say the next step in this technology is for electronics to move from devices like smartphones and computers or credit cards into human bodies. Gordon?
We're seeing an advance here, a so-called advance, that is actually quite chilling. And the amount of data that those little devices are giving off is absolutely incredible. I would be very worried about a hacker having access to that kind of information. But people are doing it, and they're doing it for one reason: convenience.